Welcome to Bulimia Sucks. I'm your host, Kate Hudson Hall, and thank you for listening to Bulimia Sucks. Now, this is a platform for people to share relatable and uplifting and inspiring conversations based on bulimia and anorexia, and then other eating disorders. And episodes will include their personal stories of their journeys of where they are now, but also with their difficult journeys on their steps taken and how they've moved forward in their recovery. And then we also talk to professionals who work with people with eating disorders. Now, my book, Bulimia Sucks, the audiobook, is now live on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. And if you would be interested and would like a free copy, then email me at katehudsonhall@gmail.com, and then I will send you the code. So then you can download it for free. And also out now on Amazon are the bulimia and anorexia and the binge eating, and also the anxiety, stress relieving coloring books that I've made. And they display a collection of 35 relaxing, easy to color patterns with inspiring quotes of wisdom and added motivational questions to guide you forward in your recovery. So they not only calm and relax you, but have an added sprinkle of extra support in your recovery. So if you love mandala coloring books, then check them out. So if you put my name into Amazon, Kate Hudson Hall, then they will come up, the list will come up. So have a look, check them out. Now, I'm very excited today that our guest is Elena Perella, and she is a personal coach and a domestic violence and eating disorders advocate. Her clients are determined and ambitious people who want to thrive in all areas of their lives. Hiring her to become able to inspire and motivate themselves to communicate powerfully and openly, to show emotional intelligence and empathy, and to be fully adaptable and resilient. Her authority in this field is based on extensive independent research on her personal experience of transformation, having coached herself throughout depression, eating disorders, and domestic violence, and has worked as a coach in the emotional field for 10 years. She has 27 years experience on how to identify and eliminate those obstacles that are a discordant note in our lives. So welcome, Elena. Oh, it's fabulous to have you here. Thank you so much.
Hi, Kate. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a real pleasure.
Yes. So, Elena, so you're in Sardinia.
Yes, I'm in Sardinia.
And that's where you were born?
I was born here, yes.
Yeah. Oh, it's a fantastic area of the world.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Very, very beautiful.
Yeah.
Lots of nature, beautiful sea, beautiful beaches. Wonderful.
Oh, we all want to come there. We'll all be coming to visit.
You're all invited.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. So should we start? We spoke briefly and you were telling me about your difficult experience when you were a teenager with your father and then your mother. So should we start there?
Yes, I was in my early teenage when I developed the binge eating disorder. I was only 12 years old.
All right.
And people said that it was my fault if I was eating so much. It was my choice. But in the beginning, I believed them. But at one point, I thought, am I really so stupid to choose to hurt myself? No, was the answer, because nobody is so stupid to choose to hurt himself.
Yeah, and at that age, it would be so difficult to not believe what an adult tells you.
Right, right.
With, when you've got that behavior going
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
Because, at that age, you don't really know any different.
Absolutely. Adults are our model, the
Yeah.
example, the authority, the reality.
Yeah.
They should know it better, but it isn't. It isn't that way, unfortunately. Not often.
Yeah. Yeah. And so at that time, so you were binge eating, were you?
Binge eating, yes. From it started when I was 12 until I became 19 years old.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Gosh, how difficult.
It was difficult because I began to gain weight. And so I was a fat teenager. And my peers began to bully me because of that. And I felt so depressed that I really didn't enjoy going to school anymore. I went, but I didn't study, so the results were very, very poor. And I was very, very sad teenage. And I also had a bad relationship with my mother because she was very controlling, very obsessive, and I couldn't express my emotions at home because she feared a reaction, a bad reaction from my father. Why? Because my mother had a father who was a very violent man. He was a narcissist, psychopath, sociopath, and very, very abusive. And so she grew up with a fear for men.
Right.
And she never expressed herself at home. And so she behaved in that way with me, suppressing my emotions.
Yeah.
And this caused me the binge eating disorder because I wasn't free to be a child, to be myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And so she taught you how to suppress your emotions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Gosh, so no wonder with those feelings buried away, it would have been difficult, to move forward in your life, really, because you would just be so confused.
Yes, because we go through difficult periods in which we feel sad or frustrated. We want to cry. I wasn't allowed to do that. And so I had to keep it inside. But, day after day after day, it has to find a way out. And for me, it was food.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't only that. My mother had a troubled relationship with food. So she passed on to me that tendency.
Plus,
Plus,
did she binge eat? Did she overeat?
yes, yeah. Okay. Every time that she feels depressed, frustrated, or doesn't know how to manage her emotions, then she eats.
Right.
And she passed that on to me. Plus, she passed on to me a lot of insecurities, fears, anxiety, and well, with her toxic behavior towards me, she fueled that inheritance. Then it's logical that I developed something to find a way out. I ate not only because I was scared of my own emotions because they were suppressed and big. I also ate because unconsciously I wanted to fill in a gap, an internal gap, an emptiness. It was
Right.
the lack of love.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so different for everybody. And identifying specifically what has happened to make you feel a certain way, it's about getting down to the root cause, isn't it, of what's caused you to feel this way, and address all of those different emotions.
Yes, it's difficult to identify it, but the root cause, I believe it is the same for all of us, because a person who really loves herself doesn't need to hurt herself. So this is the big problem that we have, unfortunately. Yeah.
And so going back to what happened then, and so your father.
My father was actually absent in my life. We lived under the same roof, but he was a very, very busy man. a very, very busy businessman. So he had no time for family. And we never communicated with each other. He never asked me, how are you? How was your day? How you feel today? Why you feel sad? Well, he couldn't see my sadness because I had to suppress it. But, he never asked me anything about me. And for I feared him, I couldn't ask him either about him.
Mm.
So we were living together, but it was like apart from each other, separated. And when he died, I was 19. It was as if I was looking at a stranger because I really didn't know anything about him.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And still don't know much. The things that I came to know about him were things that people from the village told me. They knew him better than I.
Yeah, yeah. And did your mother, did she ever, after he passed away, did she ever talk about him? Or?
Not much, actually. She only said something like that she feared him, even though he never did something to make us think that he was someone we had to fear. And no, for the rest, she didn't tell me much.
And with regards to the binge eating, so did that carry on?
The binge eating, I suffered from 7 years. Yeah.
Right. And then what happened?
And then my father died, and the binge eating turned into bulimia nervosa. And I suffered for 16 years.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. And when we spoke earlier, you said that, how old were you when you moved away?
20, I moved to the Netherlands.
Right, so a year after he died.
Yeah, a year and a half.
Right. And is that when you started? How old were you when you started to get some help, or to decide to, find ways to be able to change your patterns?
I didn't get any help. What happened because of my father's death is that I awoke. I suddenly began to see things for what they really are. And it was then that I saw that I was a toxic product of my family. I began to see toxic dynamics in my family, for example. I began to see the real intention behind people's behaviors. And I began to become aware, and become aware of all the toxic emotional elements that I inherited from both my parents and also from previous generations.
Yeah.
And it was then that I made a conscious choice to cure myself, to overcome bulimia.
Right. And so what do you think was the deciding sort of drivers behind you stepping back and looking at your patterns and how they were connected to, past family members and your experiences?
Could you rephrase it, please?
So when you made that decision that you were going to, well, turn around and look inside, basically, what made you decide to do that?
I think that I couldn't make another decision. I was awake, and I didn't want to end up like my family members, most of them. No, especially I didn't want to end up like my mother and my father, because they had everything, materially speaking, but lived a miserable life, emotionally speaking, because they weren't in love with themselves and so with each other, and so they never spread love in the family. So, and they never achieved their goals, never made their dreams concrete, especially my mother. So I thought, okay, I have now the choice. What do I want to do? End up like my mother, or discover who I really am and what I really want to do in life? Why am I here on this planet? And I took this choice. I made this choice of, okay, let's go on this discovery journey. Who am I?
And so what helped you along the way?
What helped me along the way? Identifying all these elements that weren't mine, these toxic emotional elements. So my mother's fear, insecurities. What helped me also was to challenge myself and find other ways through which I could free myself from those elements.
Yeah.
Other things that helped me were trying by challenging myself to discover what I liked.
Okay.
I also read a lot. Literature, for example, it helped me a lot understand better human behavior and the human mind. It was really very, very interesting. So my studies also helped me a lot. I began to study when I was in the Netherlands. I did literature, later study in, I did Latin American and Caribbean studies in literature and orientation in cultural anthropology. And well, there was a link, it was not only a passion, but the interest to understand myself better and other people better.
Yeah.
It was a great support.
Yeah. And so when you think back to the binge eating and the bulimia, what do you feel was the hardest part for you when you had that?
The hardest part. In experiencing them or in curing myself from them?
Both.
Both.
So
hardest part. For the binge eating, it was, I suffered a lot while I was having those binge eating attacks, filling myself with so much food, while I was also sensing that it wasn't right what I was doing. It was terrible. Yeah. Eating so much and seeing my body changing. I was gaining weight day after day after day. And the consequences, being bullied by my peers, that was also very, very painful.
Yes, we can get carried away with the bullying, can't we? Beating ourselves up.
Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember this very clearly.
And what about the bulimia? What was the hardest part about having that?
The bulimia, it was hard to not be able to stop when I felt the impulse to overeat. I felt the impulse, and then I experienced a kind of blackout in my mind, and went to the store and bought as much as I could, and then I ate, and this feeling of impotence, actually, knowing that you're doing something that is not right, but you cannot stop. So that moment, it was a matter of seconds. But it's the fact is that inherited toxic emotions and the toxic emotions also that our internal wounds produce are stronger than we are. So this is why it is so difficult to stop behaving in unhealthy ways, to resist the impulse. We don't have control on our behavior. That's the problem. Those emotions, toxic emotions, are stronger than we are. And so this is why we cannot fight them. We can control them. But controlling them isn't the same than freeing yourself from them. When you control those impulses, you are suppressing them, and doesn't mean that you have solved the problem. On the contrary, it will find another way out. So you will find another addiction, and plus you will get so frustrated because you have to monitor yourself continuously to not to fall into temptation again.
And then what was the hardest part about in your recovery?
In my recovery, the hardest part, actually, there wasn't such a hardest part, because somehow I made of bulimia my best friend.
Right.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It means that I allowed the process of recovering. I was taking action, of course, doing my internal work, and I had this deep patience. And this is why I didn't fight. Yeah, I just allowed it to happen and guided myself through the process.
I like that.
Yeah.
And accepting this is where I am.
This is where I am, and I know where I want to be, because I knew that I wanted to cure myself. I wanted to be free. And indeed, little by little, my bulimia left me, day after day after day. Then it was over. And I didn't force it to step out of my life.
So what advice would you give somebody that's thinking about stepping onto that recovery path?
I think that therapy can help. It can really help. So if you are in such a situation, before you think, okay, I'll do it also by myself, no, please. Perhaps it's better if you talk with someone. I did it by myself because, I don't know, it just felt that I had to do it that way. I tried groups therapy 4 years before I cured myself, but it didn't work. After a few months, I left.
I think that group therapy is very individual. Some people, they really benefit from it. I remember when I went to group therapy, I didn't feel comfortable talking in a group, but some people, they find it really positive, don't they?
Yeah. And so it wasn't my case, and I didn't see any progress. So I felt very uncomfortable, and I left. So, and I continue my journey by guiding myself. Yeah, but it's try to ask for support, because perhaps you find the person that can guide you, and also be aware of the root cause. Don't fear to admit that there is something perhaps in the relationship with your mother that wasn't that led you to develop this disorder. It's not I'm not saying that you have to blame, that you have to say that someone else is guilty. It's just a matter of responsibility. It is normal that when someone can't give to himself or herself something, then they cannot give it to you. And not because they do it on purpose. It is just the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you recovered from bulimia, then what pathway did you take? What are you doing now?
Now I'm doing, I've become a personal coach, and I discover who I really am. And I am raising awareness on these problems, the root cause of these problems.
And how are you raising awareness? I mean, what is it you're doing?
I do podcasts. I join events as a presenter. I also write articles about it. I am writing a book on what I went through. And
Good.
yes, I don't coach people who suffer from eating disorders because I'm not specialized in this, but I do help people through the coaching who want to thrive in all areas of their life.
Okay. And so what sort of clients do you get for coaching?
My clients are determined and ambitious people who really want to make a difference in their lives and the life of their children.
And what sort of issues do you help people with?
All kinds of issues. If you have, for example, if you depend on something like food, smoking, alcohol, bad habits, then I can help you become free of bad habits. If you have problems with parenting, if, for example, you have difficulties in communicating with your children, I can help you with that. If you experience troubled relationships, I can help you with that. I can help with, I can help you create emotional balance. For example, if you are often angry or frustrated, or you feel for example, also about work, if you end up every time in a toxic work environment, then I can help you to understand why and eradicate the root cause so that you will find a different environment.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
So going back to your recovery, so are there any specific resources that you could share with us that helped you recover?
There is, for example, one book, I have it here, and it's called All About Love by Bell Hooks.
By who?
Bell Hooks. Bellhooks.
Oh, Bell Hooks.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
The title is All About Love, and this book opened my eyes on love. I mean, I searched all my life for a definition of love that could help me, something practical, because we are bombarded with definitions of love, but they are, for me, too abstract. they say it all and nothing. So I was looking for a definition that I could use, and I found it in this book.
Okay. And so what specifically did you learn from that book?
That love, actually, it's a quote from another book, but you can find here more explanation. That love is, I can read it for you.
Yeah, that would be lovely.
Yeah. Let me find it. It's a quote from another author, Mr. Scott Peck, in his book, The Road Less Traveled. And it says that love is the will to extend one's self for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. Love is as love does. Love is an act of will, namely both an intention and an action. Will also implies choice. We do not have to love, we choose to love. So for me, this was an eye-opener.
Do not have to love, we can choose to love.
Yeah.
It's our choice.
And I edited this quote to make it my own and to define love even better for me. And I added that love is the energy that fuels our will to help ourselves and others grow.
Oh, lovely.
That's it. Very simple.
Lovely.
Very, very practical. Yeah.
Very true.
Very true. Yes.
Because it's the energy from inside, isn't it? Inside us.
Mm-hmm. And we can activate this energy, because we have the source inside. We can activate it and use it daily.
Yeah. And so before your eating disorders started, If you were to, or what do you wish that you'd known before they started?
That's a good question. That it wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I lived carrying guilt for so many years,
Right.
and guilt can kill you.
Yeah.
So heavy to carry.
That it wasn't your fault.
No, it wasn't my fault. This doesn't mean that we don't have to do anything about it. You say it's not my fault, I don't do anything. No, on the contrary, you know that it's not your fault, then take responsibility, which means respond in a constructive way to this problem that you have. Respond in a constructive way because you have inside the tools to overcome it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So, Elena, so how can people find you?
They can find me on my website, sentido.com.
What is it? It's your name.
Sentido.
What does that?
Sentido, what it means, it's an ancient Sardinian word that means the ability of the soul to see things for what they truly are.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. So it's sentidu.com.
They can find me also on LinkedIn and soon on Facebook.
Okay. Okay, good. And lastly, is there anything else that you would like to tell everybody listening?
I would like to tell you, don't give up. Don't give up. Don't resign to living an unfulfilling life, a life that doesn't feel like yours. Go inside and uncover who you really are.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Because that's what people need to do. It's actually turning inwards rather than turning outwards consistently and starting to address and finding the real you. That's lovely. Well, thank you, Elena, so much for sharing your story. And that I love your quote. I think that's beautiful, beautiful. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Elena. So that's all for today's episode of Bulimia Sucks. And thank you to everybody for listening. And join us again on the next episode. So make sure that you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a tune. And also, check out my book, Bulimia Sucks, which is on Amazon, to learn many different techniques to help you to begin to break through your painful bulimic behaviors. And then I'd love to hear what you think. So it'd be great if you could leave me a review. And then let us know what you think about the show as well by leaving us a review also on Apple Podcasts or Castbox or Embed Player or Buzzsprout or wherever you may listen. So thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to chatting with you in the next episode.